Welcome to Season 2 of Voices of Value, a conversation between Peter Kakos and Rick Rushton, and their high-achieving guests from professional sport, Olympians, business leaders, and ordinary people with value hacks to share through simple life lessons. If you're keen to reach your next level personally and professionally, sit back and join the conversation with your hosts, Rick and Peter.
Voices of Value with my good friend Peter Kakos, Rick Rushton here with a very special guest. Pete, before we introduce our guest, just want to acknowledge the wonderful feedback we've had from so many people about our Easter edition of Voices of Value, where you absolutely gave some gems for people to really think about. None better than, 2 years on from COVID-19, what do I regret not doing, which is I've had so many people pick up the phone and tell me that was just a real game changer for them. So welcome, mate. Hopefully that wasn't the best you've got, because we've got a very important show to do today.
Well, thank goodness we've got someone by the likes of Paul McGee that's going to join us today. And Rick, I'll leave it to you to go through the many accolades of Paul McGee's life and career and so forth. But he's become very close to us here at Voice of Value, and certainly very much a personal friend of yours and mine, Rick. But rather than just talk about COVID-19 from a spectator point of view, what we wanted to do is actually delve a bit deeper. And unfortunately, this dreaded virus, which does not discriminate, has actually affected someone who is near and dear to us. And that's why we thought we'd get Paul on just to a couple of things really, is to find out what it's like from the other side, someone with it and what they went through, and how they've actually been managed to get through to that beautiful column which says recovered. Yep. And also, when you look at someone like Paul, or you've listened to someone like Paul, or read one of his many books, he came up with something called SUMO, which was shut up, move on. Now, pretty easy to do when things are externally going quite well, but what I'm really looking forward to finding out today is, when you're hit with so much that comes with us, with economy-wise, health-wise, and everything, it's just one big perfect storm at the moment. How do you shut up and move on from that? So that's what I'm looking forward to hearing today from the great Paul McGee.
Well, mate, I think we've got no one better to talk to on how to be resourceful in these challenging times, and someone who's published so many books that could basically, any one of them could give us some strategies. But I think the beautiful thing today is we're not going to find solutions in the chapters of one of his many books. We're going to hear it straight from, as you say, mate, the horse's mouth. More than 2 million confirmed cases in the world as at 6 a.m. our time when we recorded this, 2,064,815. Tragically, more than 137,000 people have lost their lives. Encouragingly, more than 500,000 have recovered. In Australia, we seem to have really, got it really early days and sort of secured only 63 fatalities, which I think is still way too many, but to only have just under 6,500 cases is amazing. The one column that's really thrilling is that our next guest has actually made it across to that recovered sort of column, and he is someone who's near and dear to us. He's a very close friend of both of ours, Peter, family member for us in many ways, and to that end, it's a real thrill to invite back for a three-peat, Pete, record here. Three-peat. No one else. I mean, we've had a lot of people try and get back on. Then we've had a lot of people refuse to come on, but that's a story for another time. And then we've had the absolute gift of Paul McGee. Paul McGee, got to say, we're thrilled to absolutely have you, see you, look at you, and see the tanned look that says to me, if that's what you look like after COVID-19, that's a fairly good recovery, my friend. Welcome to Voices of Value again.
It is. It's great to be with you. It's really funny. I mean, you guys just lift my spirits anyway. I mean, they talk about laughter being good medicine, and boy, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago I needed you guys, so to speak. But yeah, people are looking at me. I'm doing a lot of different interviews at the moment, and people go, "You look so well." And part of the backstory to that is probably 2 weeks before I came ill, my wife and Helen and I, we went to Lanzarote in the Canary Islands. So we had a lovely week in the sunshine. I then got back to the UK, traveling all around. Then a couple of days later, became really quite ill. And was so ill and exhausted, but we actually had something quite rare in the UK in March. We had some sunshine. And so I would literally just be asleep in the garden for a few hours. And we've had a couple of nice days recently as well, the last couple of days. So yeah, I've got this tangoed, almost slightly Donald Trump kind of esque kind of glow to my skin, but it's genuine. It ain't out of a bottle. And the thing is, I feel fantastic. I think one of the things, and I'll probably talk about it, that I definitely lost when I was ill was my mojo. I mean, I literally felt like I'd lost, not the will to live, but we're thinking about the future. And I was just, so drained physically, but if I'm honest, psychologically and emotionally as well. And again, I think it's not down to me, it's down to just we as human beings, the inner resilience we have and the power of your immune system, that you can be in a very, very low point. And actually within 2 weeks or so, just over 2 weeks, starting to make that recovery. And I think we all need to take heart. I'm going to talk about a lot of different issues, but we as a race, we are flipping resilient. And we should never forget that. And no matter how low the economy goes, no matter how low sometimes we feel, it was something that Pete mentioned on your previous episode. We need to remind ourselves this is temporary. This is not permanent. And we're not going to get through this on our own. We're going to need each other. But let's just take heart that there are literally hundreds of thousands of people around the world right now with this virus. And the majority of them are going to come through this absolutely okay. And that's not to diminish, as you say, all the tragedy around all of this. And every life that's lost is a life too many. But I think we also, and again, maybe we'll talk about this, we need to kind of step back as well, because sumo isn't just standing for shut up, move on. It also stands for stop, understand, move on. And I think at a time like this, that's exactly what we need to do.
And I think for me, mate, it's when you see the numbers as we're getting on the regular news updates, you see the numbers and you go, gee, that's tragic. But you were someone who I know and love, and you were actually part of those numbers. And it really hit home to me. That was the first real reference point, Pete. I don't know if that sort of resonated with you, but when I found out that Paul had it, I started thinking, now this is real now. This is like I knew it was real, but it becomes almost uber real when it's someone you know, love, and have a strong relationship with.
Yeah, Paul, can we go back right to when you were diagnosed and so forth and got it? I think for those that are wondering what it's actually like, we read about the symptoms that whether it's the slight dizziness or the sore throat, a bit of a dry cough and that sort of stuff. What were the symptoms? And then could you lead on into, how different, if at all, to the common cold or a flu-like type thing? Could you take us through?
Sure. So I actually, my son is a doctor, and him and his wife are currently living with us. So initially what had happened was my wife, Helen, had been talking about feeling a little bit dizzy. And I hadn't even registered that might even be a symptom at the time of the illness. But apart from that, she had a little bit of a cough, but nothing much. But I suddenly, in the space of 24 hours, went into thinking, wow, I am feeling really tired here, really tired. But at that point, there was about, 2 official confirmed cases in the Warrington area. And I'm just thinking, it's just, I don't know, a little bit, maybe touch of the flu, it's a virus. Then my son came home and his wife had been sent home from work. She had a cough, she was feeling tired. And my son said, I brought back this really sort of sophisticated thermometer. It's really super accurate. I think we need to take people's temperatures. And so he took the temperatures of all 4 of us. And my ignorance, I didn't even know what your temperature should be. I'm still not 100% sure now. But Helen said to me, she said, if it's over 38, that is a high temperature. So everyone had just over 38, but I was like 39.3. And Matt was just assessed me and went, you know what, Dad, for all 4 of us to feel unwell within such a short period of time, there can be no other reason than it's the virus, it's the COVID-19. And that evening, around about 7 o'clock, I just was so shattered. I just had a bit to eat. And I just went, guys, I'm off to bed. And I think that was the latest I ever went to bed in the next sort of 2 weeks. So for me, and I think what's really important to realize for the listeners and the viewers is I'm giving you my particular experience. We've got to be careful of making general conclusions from this. This is my story, and I think there's going to be some people who will actually have the virus, a bit like Helen, it would seem, and hardly have any symptoms. There's going to be other people who have some mild symptoms. There's going to be people like me who the key thing for me was extreme fatigue and fever and night sweats. But, and this was the thing that always reassured me, was I no time had any respiratory, I was going to say respiratory, or well, let's just say we'll call breathing problems. Not very good with say the word respiratory. And that was, so I always felt reassured that, okay, this is tough, this is hitting me hard, but my breathing is still okay. And but what was different, I suppose, about the illness is because many years ago, and I talk about in the book How Not to Worry, 3 reasons for why, to analyze our fears. And one of them is it historical? Is there something from your past that's now making you fearful now? So like when my daughter was about 3, she got bitten by a dog. It's fair to say that she's quite fearful of dogs for the next ensuing few years, but there was a historical reason for it. Now, my only real fear, if you want to use that word, about my illness was all the fatigue, because maybe 20 years ago, I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And I was just concerned that is this fatigue and is this virus going to hit my system so hard and impact my immune system that it will re-trigger chronic fatigue syndrome. But the thing with chronic fatigue syndrome was I didn't work for 3 years. And so that was a bit of a concern for me. But, the nights, what was the main difference, I would say, from any previous illness that's kind of related to that was the high fever, the high temperature. And I was literally, Helen was no way going to share a bed with me, that was for sure. But she'd keep the bedroom door open and she'd keep checking in me, because obviously I was going to bed at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. But I was tossing and turning and I was delirious during the night. So that was my experience. But here's the thing, it's not going to be the same for everybody by any stretch of the imagination.
But once you knew you had it and you were dealing with it and you were being nursed beautifully by Lady Helen McGee, who is just so stoic, and obviously in your household, she's like a rock. And, with your son, Matt, we must also acknowledge it's Matt's birthday today, Pete. So we're taking, his dad away from him as we grab this interview. But, both Matt, his beautiful wife, you've all got it to some degree. And as you say, it's different for different people. But at the stage where you knew you had it and then you're dealing with it and coping with it, how much were you relying upon what you'd like to think you would expect others to rely upon in terms of some of your strategies for dealing and coping with times of distress and times of challenge and times of difficulty, as opposed to lying there in a fetal position thinking, woe is me, is this going to be like the chronic fatigue syndrome that really did sort of affect me economically, did affect me self-esteem wise, did affect me in such a way whereby it was a question of whether it was going to actually strike me right out altogether. Did you have any sort of way of starting to go, hang on, Paul, let's start sort of, living the lessons we teach in books, or was it not that clinical? How did you do? As Pete said earlier, he's keen to know, and I'm keen to know too, how many of the principles in Sumo or any of your other books that you've written, which I think is now about to total 12, isn't it? But what was there any lessons there that you could say you could rely upon that got you through?
I think we need to be honest, really. I need to be honest and go, when you become so ill, and not from a life-threatening point of view, but when you literally, it's like the analogy I've often used, maybe used it on a previous episode, is if you go to bed and your phone, your mobile phone is completely out of charge, you charge it up, and in the morning you go, it's fully charged, we're ready to go. When I was ill with COVID-19, I would say I put my phone charge, I charge my phone, I get some rest. But it's the equivalent of waking up in the morning and you're on 2%. That's it. Now, in that situation, and it wasn't just a 2% of a lack of energy, as I said to you earlier, it did impact me psychologically and emotionally. And I was suddenly thinking about the future and how's it going to affect the economy and my business. And it felt like overwhelm. And I suppose what I did with that very small amount of energy and insight and learning that I had from the past was, I often use this phrase, besides God, if you believe in God, the most important person you're ever going to talk to is yourself. And I was just suddenly thinking, okay, this is not about my future. This is about today. I just need to get through today. And one of the things that I've been using in the last 18 months, and I'm so pleased I've still managed to do this, is my mornings are really crucial to me. And that's happened in terms of it's been inspired by some of what I've learned from your previous guests. So I've got my morning rituals. And before I get out of bed, one of my morning rituals, and I did this still every single day when I was ill, is what am I thankful for? And I actually have a little postcard that that I give out at events. It's got 3 questions on it. And the first question is, what am I thankful for? But for is spelled F-O-U-R. And so the challenge is you think of 4 things that you are thankful for that happened to you the previous day. And I was always able to do that. The second question is, how am I showing kindness to others? And I found it's a useful question, because in the midst of all that I'm going through, it's not all woe is me and the universe revolves around me. It was still, is there one little small act I can take today to show some kindness to someone else? And that might be just replying to a text, or even saying to somebody, I'm not well myself at the moment, but I just wanted to say I'm thinking of you. Or just to really look Helen in the eyes and just kind of say, you know what, I love you and I'm just so thankful for you. So what am I thankful for? How am I showing kindness to others? But there was a third one, which was, how am I showing kindness to myself? And I found that the hardest question to deal with, because like you guys, I'm a very driven, achievement-orientated kind of person. And this is really frustrating because, I'd go onto Facebook, I'd go onto different parts of social media, and all my speaker buddies are going, yeah, I've got this Zoom meeting, I've just sorted out this with a client, I'm going to be doing this webinar, I bought my green screen. And I'm like, whoa, I'm being left behind here. And it kind of wasn't good for me. And I just kind of went, Paul, you need to start showing a little bit of compassion and kindness to yourself here. You've got this too will pass. It might take a little bit longer than it has for other people, but go easy on yourself. You're not on this earth simply to achieve, and work through a to-do list and write books and speak at events. You just need to recognize, and I think this is the key word, accept where you are at the moment and literally take each day at a time. And it was almost like I just need to have the universe's grace for today to get through today, and realize I'm not writing blogs, I'm not doing articles, I wasn't well enough to do any little videos, and just go, you know what, Paul, mate, that is all right. That might change, but today that is okay. So I think those 3 questions are really helpful, and just being mindful of, I talk about this little phrase, don't consume CNN, constant negative news. And I think there's a little phrase which I came across from a friend of mine called Drew Povey this week, and he said, every day of the week, whatever the day of the week it is, it's a Chooseday. But Chooseday, so it's CHOOSE day. It's a Chooseday. And I still think for all of us, before this crisis, during this crisis, and beyond this crisis, it is really crucial that we wake up every day and remind ourselves, today is a Chooseday. And I've got to make some choices today on how to help myself. What is within my control? Do you know what was in my control? Whether I decide to feed my fears and consume what I call, you can be out at sea and you can be out at sea and yet you can drown of thirst, even though you're surrounded by water. Why? Because the water you're surrounded with is salt water. It'll dehydrate you. It's bad for you. And I think we're surrounded by a lot of salt water at the moment, i.e. information or speculation, should I say, and bad news that is obviously magnified a great deal. That is meaning if we consume all that salt water, that is not going to do us any good. And so you've got to look for that pure water. And I would say to you guys and other people who do podcasts and to Leanne Pilkington, some of that pure water that we seek is you've got to go, what am I going to feed my mind on today? And I think I need to listen to a podcast that's going to lift my spirits. And just as an aside to you two, yeah, of course I get gems from each of you, every single episode, and from your guests. But what I don't think you appreciate, maybe, and I think other people need to appreciate, is the humour that goes on between you, the way you banter or the way you barrack each other. Just, humour is good medicine, guys. And, there was a point where I decided to listen to, I think you were doing a podcast with a comedian, and I just listened to that, even whilst I was ill. And just like hearing familiar voices, getting some wisdom, but also getting some laughter. Hey, that lifted my spirits. It really did. So thank you to you two.
Well, I love the fact, Pete, that the day starts with gratitude. What am I thankful for? And the 4 being the metrics of the 4 things. If you put that into your head space, then that changes your thinking. It changes how you feel. It changes how you act, and obviously the perspective that Paul has, that gives him the ability to say, I'm not so much going to concentrate too much on what I don't have the ability to do at the moment. I'll concentrate on what I do have the ability to do, but don't think for 1 minute, mate, that I'm not going to be using Chooseday. What a fantastic
That's brilliant, isn't it?
That's a great hack, Pete.
It's interesting. I go back to our kinesiologist, and I was speaking to him going back a few years now when actually we had our firstborn, and I think she was maybe 1 or 2, and my wife was sort of getting a bit frustrated because, all the time that it takes with a little one, and then, in business, and then feeling, and then all of a sudden the guilt came in, and, I need to be, making money. I need to be out there with my business and that sort of stuff. And I spoke to the kinesiologist about this, and I said, this is the sort of stuff that Em's going through. And he said something that lives with me all the time now. He says, just remember, it's a moment in time. It's not going to be one forever. So just embrace it. It's just a moment in time. I'm not saying to embrace, you wouldn't embrace COVID-19, that's for sure. But it is that reminder, isn't it, guys? It is a moment in time, and what we're all experiencing right now. It's a classic Eckhart Tolle principle, isn't it? It's about the power of now, and not thinking too far ahead, not going backwards. It's like, it is what it is. What can we be doing right now in this moment to have the biggest effect moving forward? And that was prompted that question about, it's okay to look forward to then look back and go, well, what were some of the regrets, the things that you wanted to do but you didn't get to do?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest reinforcement that I'm reminding those around me is, don't leave this moment with any regrets. If they suddenly said tomorrow, the UK and the Aussie government said, that's it, it's over, back to work, I really wonder how you'd feel. Would you say, oh, could have done that, should have done that, or it's a lot of things that I'm going to do that, or I'll clear this up, and I'll whatever it may be, and you'll know yourselves what it is. But you don't want to move out of this period before you get some closure in certain areas. That would be my belief.
And I think, what this world pandemic is doing is giving us all fresh perspective, isn't it? Because what we think was a challenge 3 or 4 months ago is now just nothing. It's virtually just now really put into perspective. And just getting back to that time, was Olive 1 or 2, Pete? Because there's a big difference when you're 1 or 2. That's 50% of her life. You just need to know, was she 2?
That's a good point.
Can you just give us some sort of certainty?
She was 18 months old.
That's all I need to know, because in these uncertain times, mate, it's certainty that make all the difference. It's not that hard. I would have thought. Pete, one of the things you and I are very big on, and we're very big on, it's not the conditions, but our decisions that dictate where we're going and all these sorts of things. And I'm wondering, what are some of the decisions, Paul, that you made, on the other side of it? You're lucky that your son is a doctor, so he was checking in with you quite regularly. You're lucky that your wife is very stoic and she was nursing you back to good health. But there was that time when you and I had a conversation where you're saying, I'm feeling a little bit inept with the fact that I'm not across Zoom. I don't have the webinar technology. I don't know. But you also then said in the same breath, but it's okay. I've made a decision, as you mentioned earlier in your last little share, that you made a decision that you'll do what you can do when you can do it. But what were some of the decisions that you made out of it that have probably maybe not given you a fresh perspective, but maybe sharpened your perspective around what you want to do going forward?
Do you know, one of my my first decisions was, I've got a couple of associates who deliver material on my behalf as well, and we had a Zoom call last week, And one of the key phrases I wanted to say to them was this: look, when things return, I wouldn't say to normal, but return to a new normal, and we are out speaking at events, I said, we need to be ready, not rusty. And this is an opportunity to really sharpen ourselves up. I mean, the two people I've got working for me, they're currently both independently, they're doing online coaching courses. We're sharing various memes and thoughts and articles from Harvard Business Review. I've actually, because again, I think for me personally, we all operate differently, but my mornings are crucial. So one of my decisions was, okay, this is not just about, am I going to buy a green screen and am I going to understand the technology of how to run a webinar? I suddenly became aware that, look, this is the space I already speak into. When before this all happened, what does Paul McGee talk about? He talks about, change, how to survive and thrive in changing times, and all the uncertainty with that and disruption that occurs. I talk about resilience. I talk about mental and emotional health and well-being, and I talk about leadership. And I thought, I can gravitate towards the technology and think I've got to do that, but I needed to take a step back and really sharpen my thinking and understanding about all that was going on at the moment. So I need to be ready, not rusty. And one of the decisions I took was to write an article. And the article was, how to cope in a crisis or what to do when the unexpected happens. And I just had 4 key points in that. One of them, if I can just share briefly with you, and if we think about stop and understand, the first point in the article was understand how your brain works. And I thought that's based on some of my reading around Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, where he talks about 2 speeds of the brain, 2 systems. You've got your fast brain, your slow brain. Well, when I describe it at my events, fast brain is like your red baseball cap. It's primitive, it's emotional, it's like it's all feelings driven. It's act first, think later. And then you've got your slow brain, which I represent as your blue cap. And it's that more rational, logical, reflexive part of our brain. But the reality is that in a time of, the red cap above all, its primary purpose, keep you alive and protect you. So, and remember, it's fast. So it doesn't get all the facts and then makes a decision. It just reacts to things. It reacts to speculation. So that was one of the first points I put in this article. And I put, manage your mental diet, connection counts, and also, hippo time is okay. It's okay to not just feel okay about what we're going through. Digest your disappointment, sit with your sadness. But remember also, hippo time is temporary. Now, so I didn't look at technology. I just wrote an article and I sent that out. And we have about 11,000 subscribers to our newsletter. And I think we send it out about once a month. And I don't know, we get an open rate of between 5 and 10% tops. Over 30% of people opened that, then started sharing it with various other people. And I thought, rather than think, am I going to get left behind here? And what do I need to do and how to run a webinar? It was really more, what am I really good at the moment? What's a strength I know I've got? Well, maybe my writing, maybe putting over words, ideas and insights in a really accessible way. So I sent that article out. Now, next Monday, there's a Premiership football team called Brighton and Hove Albion. But one of their staff got the article, and so next Monday morning, and I'm not doing this as a paid event, but I'm doing an interview with that football club for all their non-playing staff. So I started to think, I need to be ready, not rusty. I need to refine my thinking around these kind of issues. I need to be relevant here. And so that's been my main focus. I'm actually been doing, I won't call it an online course, but an online listen to a guy based in the States who's quite a deep philosophical thinker from a kind of quite a Christian background called Rob Bell. And he did this 7-hour program called Something to Say. And every morning I just tune into him. I'm taking notes around how we communicate our ideas. I'm about to start an online writing course on how to raise your game as a writer. You may go, but that's what you do already. But the decision I made was this. I know what I'm good at, but how can I get even better at it? And so I haven't chosen. I've got other people supporting me in other areas, and I'm learning a bit about the technology. This is still only about the 5th or 6th Zoom call I've made and done. But I've decided, let's not try and, learn Spanish, learn French. I haven't got the desire, but you know what? I have got a desire to become an even better communicator. I'm not going to usually find 7 hours to listen to some stuff. So now I am. I write books, but I've never had any formal training or coaching on how to write. So I'm investing even more on how to maybe improve my writing skills. So ready, not rusty, make sure I'm relevant. And yeah, let's look at the technology. But those other thoughts have been important to me. Final point on this, Ryan Holiday, who wrote, I think, the book, The Daily Stoic and The Obstacle is the Way, said, here's something when you can look about this time. It's either dead time or it's alive time. And as we said before, every day is a Tuesday. You know, Pete, at the start of this interview, you said this, you said, so we're looking forward to hearing about sumo and shut up and move on. What's really interesting is the word sumo as a word, not as an acronym, but as a word in Latin, means choose. So
Wow.
I'm using my sumo to make some choices on a daily basis. Be ready, not rusty, be relevant, and make sure this is a lifetime and not dead time.
Yeah, I go back, Rick. It's just loving this, Paul. And I think it was Bobby Wolf when he said, for things to change, you have to change. And I look at Paul and I listen to Paul and I think of you. And I remember seeing that photo when you first put it on Facebook that you were unwell. I thought, wow, this is not good. This is not the Paul I know. And then so I sent the message out and so forth. But then I look at it and then to think that then you come out and you take that time to sort of get yourself well and health wise. And if you talk about hippo time, like I've used that so much, especially in the last sort of 3 to 4 weeks, and saying it's okay to have that little bit of hippo time if you wallow around a little bit. I'm at home. This is not exactly where I want to be. I want to be back in the office, whatever it may be. But just take that time. But for things to change, you have to change. So for these things to happen, you write an article, bang, all of a sudden, Brighton, Hove, Albion, away we go. But what are I guess the key thing here is what are the little things that you could do to put out there? Just do something, just little incremental Kaizen principles where you can do something, because eventually they will lead to something. But what you don't want to do though is, and I've seen many times this, and I see it all the time, people ask Rick and I about the podcast and, I want to start a podcast, and then they get one in or they get some equipment and they go, oh, that's it. A bit like the green screen, got the green screen? What are you doing with the green screen? Oh, I haven't got it out yet. It's still, I'm just waiting for that right, perfect environment to put the green screen up. It's a classic metaphor for life. But, what's your green screen and when are you going to put it up and actually start using it? And so for things to change, you have to change. And it's just these little things that we can do. And that Chooseday, wow, that's an absolute piece of gold right there.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing, Pete, what we heard Paul say is he just wrote something, and a quality message, whether it's analog, digital, in writing, printed, in friggin' smoke screens, I don't care, if it's blasted across the sky, a quality message stands the test of time. And so that's why fundamentals are so good. And if you don't like how things are, change, you're not a tree, is one of the great quotes from Jim Rohn, who we keep on quoting so often. But I think for things to change first, you must change is really the message out of all of this right here, right now. Like you, Pete, when I saw that image of Paul, sharing so authentically that he had coronavirus on social media, the first thing I did was after the shock, I rang Helen and found out if I was in the will. When I found out I wasn't, I thought, shit, I hope not. Because I'll tell you why. Because I thought I need him to survive because, any guy who's written so many best-selling books must have some coin. And I'm thinking, just a few pounds for us is worth it, isn't it? So, he stayed at my house a few times and I'm just thinking, it wouldn't have been bad to feel like I was part of the family with a will. But anyway, I wanted him to survive so I could sort of, get closer to him again just to see if there's some sort of chance to be in the will. But in all seriousness, Paul, I can't believe I've said that, and we might not even go with it. Hopefully Dom cuts it out. But you're now at a point where this is your passion in life, to share quality content, quality information. You had a 30% open rate because it was a quality thing. So I guess really what I was trying to say here in terms of the next gamut that I want you to think about is being that you can write books so well, but you've had no formal training, given that you can express things really well, I think your short, sharp videos are as good as anything that's out there. Can you share with us the acronym of HOPE that you shared in one of your short, sharp videos recently, just in case our listeners and or viewers didn't get access to that, because that's a quality message.
Yeah, I will do. And I think, again, going back to summarise some of the things you've said, is just to help those little steps, those little choices, those Kaizen principles, Pete, that you just talked about, are really important. And I set out for a walk on Easter Sunday morning and just thought, again, it's a beautiful morning. And what was interesting was I was near a reservoir where we were, and I carried on walking beyond that. And I suddenly thought, why don't I just do a little video now? It's a beautiful morning. And I think the thing sometimes to realise with what we do in life is sometimes it's like, have a good intention. How's it going to unfold? And I actually recorded something and just said, I hope you're well, blah, 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 and happy Easter. And then I deleted that and I thought, well, have I got anything else of value? And I'd been in a prison many years ago as a visitor, speaker, mates. And on a notice board, I think it was in the chaplaincy, was this acronym HOPE, H-O-P-E. And it just said, helping other possibilities emerge. And it was literally, as I was about to film myself, that word came to mind. Obviously, Easter is a time of hope, and it's obviously for some people, it's a time of real significance. And without getting into the religious context of it, but, the world has gone through a bit of a Good Friday. Yeah. Maybe at the moment we're still in that, processing through to Saturday, but is there an equivalent or a metaphor of an Easter Sunday? Is there some hope for the future? And helping other possibilities emerge. And what I've realised is, as I've kind of wrestled with that word hope, for me personally, I think there's probably more than two, but I think there's two things I think about in terms of hope. There's two types of hope. And one type of hope is simply wishful hope. And that is where we just take this really passive approach to all that's happening. Well, it all depends on what the government's going to do. It all depends on what the economy does. It all depends on the housing market. And there's almost this sit and wait and do absolutely nothing. And I think that passive wishful thinking hope will derail us. It's not something that's going to be helpful at all. But there's another type of hope, and I call it the worked through hope. So it's not wishful thinking hope, it's the work through or the worked out hope. And that is, okay, there are things out of my control at the moment. Why keep focusing on them? Why keep focusing on stuff that I can't actually influence or improve? But hang on a minute, there is some things I could work through now that I am ready, not rusty. I'm relevant. I've got maybe an edge to me that maybe I didn't have before this crisis. And so I think hope is important. It's not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy, but it is a catalyst to kind of give us the kickstart to move forward with a degree of optimism that other people might not have. It's not this Pollyanna approach of it's all going to be fine. It's going to be the times ahead are probably going to be challenging. They're going to be a struggle. And the struggles can strengthen you, but I'll be more prepared for that struggle and to get work through it because of how I'm using my time now rather than going, I'm just sitting at home hoping things will improve. So helping other possibilities emerge. And I think this is a time for us to think about new ideas, new thoughts, innovation, and adapting our businesses when appropriate in order to do so.
And I think the ready, not rusty is a really good point, because I think it was Dr. Stephen Covey in his great book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about sharpening the saw and making sure that you've got that sort of upskilling going on. And to give you an authentic message around that, Pete and I spoke a few times earlier today, not really in readiness for this, but just chatting about things in general. And he said, hey, mate, have you heard of this thing called Masterclass? And I had seen it. And I said, is that the thing where Ron Howard gives a masterclass on how to be a great director? And Doris Kearns Goodwin talks about how to be a great leader. And he goes, yeah. He goes, because I'm thinking of signing us up for it. I said, I'm there. Just do whatever it takes. I'm there because I'm thinking I want to dedicate part of this weekend coming up because Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote one of the best books I've ever read on leadership called Team of Rivals, where she took all the diaries of Abraham Lincoln and his wife, Mary Todd, and his adjutants and his cabinet members, and talked about his incredible ability to lead through one of the most challenging times in history, in the American history anyway, during the Civil War. And he brought into his cabinet all of the rivals who tried to actually get the candidacy for what ultimately became the presidency of the United States. And everyone warned him about that and said, are you silly? Like, do you realise that every one of these people in your cabinet all want your job? And he said, I guarantee you that's the case. But he said, but they're all the best at what they do. How dare I keep the American people away from these people who are the best at what they do? And in them days, Salmon Chase, who founded Chase Manhattan Bank, if that's the right way of saying it, wrote a check out of his own funds to keep the doors to America open. So I'm thinking, what a great thing. I've read the book. I've met the lady. She signed my copy of the book. She was at NAR in, I think it was 1998 or thereabouts. And when Pete said that was the opportunity, I went, I'm taking that opportunity right here. And that's the benefit, I think, Paul, of understanding that we'll get through it with the help of others, because I've had an intention around that because I've seen it advertised a bit. Pete just said I'm signing us up, and I went, thank God you are, because I'm across all that. So one of the things about these podcasts or sharing or collaborating is it also has someone who thinks a little bit more of you than you're probably thinking for yourself at the moment, and forces you to, keep on sharpening the sword. So I love that distinction, Pete, about I'm ready, not rusty.
Well, that's what they say. When one person teaches, two people learn. I just love that, and that's always been a great philosophy of mine. Is to it's probably part of a challenge that I have, is when I hear something, rather than internalise myself, I'm like, who can I tell that to? Who can I share that with? So it's important to actually do both, internalise it for yourself and then take it on to others. Coming out of this, looking forward to the two of you, what preparations or what changes in your businesses right now that have you learnt now that, should this happen again, what would I do? And what sparks this question is a little place called Wimbledon, Paul, not that far from you. And I've seen over the recent week what they have done in terms of the insurance they took out some 18 or so years ago. So what they did is are you guys aware of this one? Yeah. So when the SARS epidemic, when the SARS epidemic came and they basically took insurance out. So should Wimbledon need to be cancelled because of a pandemic or something of the likes, so they were paying something like a couple of $1 million a year in insurance. And guess what? The payday has come this year, and they're going to get a payout of, say, 140 odd million. So looking back, that's something like, I think 17, 18 years ago when they took that out. It really poses a question around, okay, now we all went racing for that green screen. I'm loving that metaphor. Let's go racing for the green screen. Let's go racing for Zoom, and let's go racing for all these things to get our businesses virtually ready. So, the question is, what are some of the things that, should it happen again, that we would be absolutely prepared for?
And I'll let Paul answer it first, but he was saying he didn't know about that. He thought that Wimbledon were insuring against the fact that Wimbledon couldn't run because there was 2 solid weeks of rain in London, which is possible around that time. Yeah, but that was all based on the SARS outbreak, Pete. You're absolutely spot on. I read that 2 days ago, I think, and I think what great foresight that was. I've got some thoughts there, Paul. What do you what's your best answer to that question?
I don't have a best answer as such. I think it's actually not the decisions. I think that I'm in a place, fortunately, because of the decisions I've made over the last, what ultimately will be 29 years since I went self-employed in 1991, is we've got a nice home, we've got offices within the home. I love my trips. I love my time over in Australia with you guys and visiting. But we've never been ultra extravagant and spent money we haven't got. We've been pretty wise with our finances. And this puts me in a situation that will be different, I appreciate, for other people. But first of all, one of the biggest causes of stress clearly for people at the moment could be not just about, will I get the virus? How's it going to impact me financially? So I think some of my speaker buddies in the UK have been panicking about, I've got to do a webinar, I've got to do an epic webinar because I need to get some money in and I need to get it in now. So actually, I guess I'm in a position where maybe because of Helen's support and guidance, having good financial advice we're in a position where we didn't get into that kind of it's panic and the business is going to crumble. And I think what you'll find with both your business, Pete, and your business and your reputation, Rick, is because of what you've already established, because of who you guys are and how well you know and the value you add, actually moving forward, what needs to change in the business? Well, yeah, there can be some adaptations, but actually it's like, keep on doing all the great stuff you were doing before. This isn't like knee-jerk, yes, must do another book, must do this, must change everything. We just need to kind of like press pause and stop and understand that what's got you to, and what's got loads of people listening to this podcast and watching it, what's got you to the place you're in now is because of all the great choices and decisions you've been making over the years. And that has an accumulative effect. And I don't think we need to panic now and go, so we need to push all that aside and do the new and the novel and follow what everyone else is doing. To some degree, I'm actually deciding, well, how's my business going to change? Well, first of all, in terms of what I talk about, it's not going to change. It might go deeper, but it's not going to actually change. I'm not going to suddenly start marketing myself as a sales trainer anymore because there might be more demand for that and how to win business over the phone. I'm definitely not going to go into the world of, will I go into the world of webinars? Potentially, but I'm hopefully not being complacent because I've challenged myself about this. But I thought, okay, leadership is not necessarily about looking around you and thinking what everyone else is doing, I better copy them. It's about using that blue cap again and going, okay, it's my slow brain. It's not always the quickest to activate. But what do I need to do to just stop and understand the market, stop and understand where we're at as a business? What are my actual priorities here? And not necessarily follow the crowd and just go with the flow, but actually just stop, pause, think about strategy and realize there's a load of good stuff we've been doing already. So make sure we enhance that and build on it and not join the panic crowd, the run for the green screen crowd, but actually decide, okay, let's be strategic. And can I also say this, moving forward, I'm not just a businessman. I'm not just the sumo guy. I'm a husband. I'm a father. My parents are still alive. And I have actually valued the fact we've now got 6 people living with us. We've got my son and his wife. We've got my daughter, Ruth, and her boyfriend. And we have had some real special times. And I said to them over dinner last night, you know what? How often are we going to get together as a 6 to enjoy these meals? Yeah. So for me, going forward isn't always just about this has been bad, we need to change lots of things. There are some gifts and some real gems within the mud and the misery of what we're going through that we need to spot and identify and really appreciate. And will there be some tweaks and will there be some adaptations? Yes. But here's the point. I'm talking again about my particular situation. I'm not trying to make it a global conclusion of how everyone else should be. But I would just say this, move forward with strategy and with consideration, not just go follow the crowd because that's what everyone else is doing.
I love it.
That's brilliant. That's great, Paul.
Love it. And for me, very quickly, Pete, because I know you really got me to think and sharpen my thinking over the last sort of few days when we recorded our previous episode that's gone so well in the most recent of times. But my message is kind of, I was just saying this to Gay earlier today, funnily enough, I think I want to have a survival kit because I'm pretty sure we're going to go through something similar to this in the not too distant future. I think this will become sort of, as the world continues to sort of evolve, I think there will be these moments and times. And I think my survival kit for me is, who have I got in my inner circle, my key relationships, and, people saying to me at the moment, gee, you're lucky to still be working, doing what you're doing. And I'm thinking, yeah, but if I really stop and think about it, these are all, I'm doing things for people I've got, in some instances, 20, 30-year relationships with. So, we're time tested together. I'm not going to take them for a ride. They know I'm going to add value. So that's working quite well, I suspect. And so I'm going to continue to build those relationships, which I think is what you're talking about, Paul. But I also want to have a bit of a survival kit with me, i.e. I want and Pete, you and I talked about this at the start of the year, I upgraded my my laptop, I upgraded my phone, I upgraded all my technology. I went for the unlimited, thankfully now, I went for the, the unlimited broadband, bloody NBN connection, the best you could get. it's paying dividends now. But I think I also, in philosophically speaking, I do want to plant shade trees I know I'll never sit under, and make sure that I've got an umbrella protecting my family and a financial wall that sort of, nothing can get through. And that's kind of what, Paul and I had a chat about it in one of our private chats leading into this webinar tonight, into the podcast interview tonight, that, a lot of people, they've been sort of put on the financial brink of, or on the ruin of financial brink, because they haven't tucked enough bloody nuts away like squirrels. They haven't been smart with their savings to that degree. So we're a little bit lucky there to sort of look at the fact that we've put some money behind us to a degree. We can ride this out a little bit. And in fact, as many of our close friends know, we've actually made one of the biggest purchases we've ever made in our lives in the last sort of 72 hours. So I think that's the message, Pete, but I love the intent with it. But I think I share Paul's belief around it won't be anything at the speed of click. It'll just be reinforcing relationships and some time-tested sort of scenarios that do pay dividends in time.
Yeah, it's incredible times to spend with family. I was sitting there with them and the kids. I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week, the table, and just said, if there's a fire right now, what would you grab? Okay. And did I mention that last week? Yeah. And
apart from Rick's book, what else would you grab?
Yeah. So I grabbed the Power of Connection straight away.
Available in all good bookstores and crap ones as well.
Paul, do you want to get out your dozen books and just maybe like a parade them across the screen or something like that?
It's all good.
Between us, we've written 14, haven't we, Paul?
Yeah. Well, that means between the three of us there's 14 as well. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's terrific. But it really is. It's that pause. I think in humanity that's seen some pretty amazing things, and family's one of them. Like, I have set up my office in the front room, and I look out my window, and I record from this side of the desk, but I sit the other side of the desk because I look straight out and I watch person after person walk past. And I tell you what, the amount of people walking, getting into the environment, walking the kids and that, I just wonder, it's interesting, what I'd like to see or look at when this is all said and done is what are relationships like? I know there'd be a bit of frustration in some households and so forth, and especially with homeschooling.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about that. But certainly from an aspect of connections and finding out a little bit about each other, I think a little bit more intimate sort of information about the family. I think that's been that'll be a tremendous thing as well. So I'd just grab my computer and just get out and whatever that's got the family, got the arms around them, got the computer, of course, and then away you go, and you do it all again. So that's really assessing what's most important. But this conversation's been amazing, and Paul, you've given us some not only some absolute gems, but some great perspective, and some and coming from a place of obviously the gratitude. And when we're grateful, we can't be anything else. That's just the way we are. But sort of almost a philosophical approach that you've come from today, but certainly some amazing things that you've really triggered, certainly in my mind, and I'm sure those are the listeners as well.
As ever, it's always great talking to you. I think one thing I'd just like to finish with as a key message for me, people say, what's some of the things you've learned? It would be about compassion and kindness, which you need to show to yourself. But, as we talk, we've been on this personal development journey for maybe, 25, 30 years. We've built up businesses and we've built up reputations, and maybe we're in a position where there's a buffer zone so that things can hit us, but maybe not as hard as they hit other people. And so one of the things I just want to be really mindful of is, probably the people who benefit most from this podcast and listening to Voices of Value aren't the ones that listen to it. And so I get really inspired and encouraged, but we need to appreciate everyone's starting a different place on this journey. They haven't got those years of ideas, the Jim Rohns, the Zig Ziglars, the Tony Robbins, and all the podcasts, all the nourishment we get in order to thrive, not just survive in these times. So for me, I think part of my also key message is, we don't know the battles that people are facing. We don't know that actually they're in a 7th floor apartment. They've got 4 kids, they're on their own, and they're financially struggling. And I think it's really important to show compassion to ourselves at times, definitely. Be grateful massively for what we are, where we're at in life. they realise there are some people on this journey, but they started it in a very, very different place. And they don't need judgment or criticism. They just need a bit of compassion, a bit of help, a bit of support, and a bit of encouragement along the way.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of summing it up. And for mine, it's, I think we've been so drilled in professional life, Pete, specifically from our backgrounds of real estate, that you've got to be a go-getter. Where I think what we're taking out of this is when the world comes out of this and resets, I think there's going to be a lot more of go-giving. Be a go-giver, and then you'll get everything you could possibly want in the relationships you can build along the way there. And I also think it's not so much about market share, it's about heart share. And a lot of things that are happening at the moment are very much in that empathetic sort of set. I saw something the other day which made me think of all the great mentors in my life and the people that have had an impact. And it talked about the fact that, personal development is a gift you've got to give yourself first before you can give it to others. And part of doing this podcast is because we have had the gift, and we mentioned that last episode, Pete, that doesn't make us any smarter or more articulate than anyone else. It's just that, some of the things we're seeing today makes us feel gratitude that we've already had them. And to see people doing it now makes us think, well, that's awesome. The world's on this sort of fast track to a better place. But I also saw this, which I love, which is, when you kiss someone passionately, when you pray to God or whatever your spiritual belief is, when you do anything of real value, you do it with your eyes closed because you're doing it from the heart. And I think what we've found in these times is the world's opening its eyes to what is really important. And you're absolutely spot on, mate. I sit opposite a park. I watch people going for walks. The most disappointed people when this thing is over is going to be the four-legged creatures called dogs, because they are so stoked with all the walking they're getting at the moment. But my gut feeling is that when we come out of this, the world will have a totally different perspective. We've been realistically aware that sometimes some of the best gifts come poorly wrapped. And I think that one of the gifts that's coming out of this is that, business is not primary, life is primary, and business funds life, and we'll find better ways to do it. And whether that be with technology, or whether that be with a pen and paper, or whether that just be with a simple thank you for the impact you've had on my life, I think the world's going to be better for it. Paul McGee, third time to the microphone. Look, if I'm being fair, it's probably not your best one, but look, I think it was important. I think it was important that you came on board and shared the inside thing. But in all seriousness, mate, when I did learn that you had it, COVID-19 stopped becoming a number to me that I was monitoring. It became someone I know and love is now challenged with it. And in all seriousness, I was very concerned, given that you did have that chronic fatigue challenge prior to that. And so when we did chat and you told me that, it hadn't had that impact with the respiratory scenario, I was truly, really thankful for that. And, speaking with Helen, as I had the great fortune to do, knowing that, Matt's a doctor, I thought you were in a good space there, in a good place. And knowing that you barracked for, Bradford and for Wigan Athletic, I knew you had stoic.
Yeah, so hasn't he gone through enough?
I thought so. I was about to say, God, that's enough, surely. But so I knew you were going to be spared. But
anything to stop Liverpool winning the title. My God, 25 points clear, and we're just sort of stuck there.
Yeah, but we hope that you love the shout out that the comic genius that we had, Dave Thornton gave us about how Australia's just like England, but with a 5-star rating. I absolutely get a Now you have to think we set that up. We didn't. We just put it out there, and that's what came out. But I know you always feel uplifted when you get off one of these in a positive way, and I'm hoping that most of our listeners have as well. If you've got the opportunity to listen to this, share it amongst your networks, rate it for us, and most importantly, watch it on YouTube, and you'll see the absolute glow that is around Paul McGee. It's not from just the sun, it's from the absolute aura he emits, which is wanting to help people get to a better space and a better place. And he does it with time-tested fundamentals. He consumes a lot of personal development material himself. He creates a lot of it too. And I'm very fortunate to have him as one of my absolute dear friends. And I know, Pete, you and I have often referenced a lot of great iconic people over the journey, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, but we find ourselves quoting the sumo guy more often than not now, don't we?
Yeah. Oh, look, that hippo time, the beach ball, these are classic principles that Paul's introduced me to that I've used with our team over the last few weeks, which are just some incredible fundamentals that people just get and understand. And that's why I think that Paul's just got this innate ability to just make you sit back and just look with what you shared today and go, you know what, gee, some more some more incredible stuff to think about and to adopt and to help us adapt to these situations. So, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Great as ever. Thanks, guys, and to all the listeners, just stay safe and stay well. And I'm looking forward to being back in Oz in 2021. So it'd be great to catch up with you guys in person and hopefully connect with a few of my Aussie mates as well. But it's always a privilege. It's always a laugh.
So
we're all in this together.
You're coming back? Is that what I hear?
Yeah, I think if they let me back in the country, yeah, maybe.
Just a couple of things very quickly. Apples. I don't want Lady Helen to bring any apples down. Let's not go there. By the way, if you come, you come.
Didn't you say you wanted another one of those beautiful porcelain plates with the Queen's face on it? Did you?
Yeah, I think that's what he wants to do. And, Paul has sort of tucked a lot of money away behind him because I've got to tell you, when he was here last time, I couldn't get him to pay for anything, Pete. The only meal he shouted me was burnt pizza up at Kingscliff near the Gold Coast. Do you remember that, Paul? It was awesome. He said, mate, let me pay for this. I said, mate, I've taken you to number 8, to Doyle's, and you want to pay now a takeaway pizza joint that was closing up, by the way.
It reminds me of a Seinfeld episode.
Mate, let's not even go there. But so, Paul, if you come time, Lady Helen's got a place to stay, no problems at all. And if I can get you a deal at Flag Motor Inn or a Premier Inn and see if there's an Australian equivalent for you.
Great, that's wonderful, guys. Thanks ever so much. You take care.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
See you, mate. Ciao.
We trust you enjoyed listening to Voices of Value, a shared conversation between Rick Rushton, Peter Kakos, and their valued guests. Their views are not necessarily those of the wider world, but they should be. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or your preferred podcast source, and we love to hear both your feedback and ratings on the content we provide. Additional information can be sourced through our website, voicesofvaluepodcast.com. Join the conversation again next week when Peter and Rick continue the search for truth, justice, and the value-added way.